Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Stop looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough. But no one wants to talk about it. It's safer not to talk about it. I cut my strings, no more bowing to the master. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol, in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It's Sunday, October the 16th, 2022, coming to you live from Carter County, Tennessee. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Tim and Dustin, and we're going to get into some current events topics and some today in history topics. It's going to be a fun show tonight. I got Reverend Crash Fist Fight lined up to do. We'll probably do a pre-recorded segment with the Reverend about some of the local area Halloween lore, some of the stuff that. Maybe some of the stuff that I went into last year, but some of the stuff I would have missed, that I've missed. He knows a lot about that stuff. He's been studying it since he was a kid. So I think that'll be a really fun show. And then we'll probably do a live segment where we talk about it, what he tells us. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. He's not going to be able to be in town on the 30th, so we won't be able to do the live segment that day, but maybe we'll record that ahead of time and have him in. We're going to figure it out. We're also going to be talking about...
We should wear the exact same clothing so you don't know if it is live or not.
That'd be fun. We're also going to talk about the War of the Worlds that day, because that's October 30th is the anniversary of the famous Orson Welles broadcast of H.G. Wells' War of the World, where they played the did the play on the radio, and a lot of people thought it was really happening, and it turned out that it was actually a bit of a psyop to see what if people would follow it. So we'll talk about that a little more. Dustin's got his crazy keyboard there. I guess went to sleep. Heard to sleep. Hey, before we get too far into this video, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. We do have the ability to post now. Oh, we've got Stock in the room here, so come here. Yeah, hey there. One of my pug and cattle dog mix there has entered the chat. Yep, we nicknamed him the Australian cattle pug. You can't really see him there. He's in Dustin's lap. Hopefully somebody will come down here and get him in a minute. Because there'll be fur all over the studio, and he'll be in one of us' lap. There you can see his head there in Dustin's lap.
It's like, hey.
He looks kind of scary if you don't know him. And I guess if you do know him, maybe a little bit. He's a nice puppy, for the most part.
What?
So thanks for jumping in that chat. Dalton and Sean, glad to see you in here. Spill the Tea was on the ladder caulking windows today. You're going to have that house ready to sell, Sean. Man, that thing looks good. Sean emailed me some photos of the house he's working on, and let me tell you, it made me ashamed of my house. It looks awesome. I said, well, I would send you some photos of my house, but I better wait till I've painted it first, because you're putting me to shame.
The whole time he was building it, I'm going to make everybody ashamed. This window is going to make me so proud, you know?
Well, he certainly did a good job.
And meowing keyboard brought the dog down.
Yeah, it might have been it.
Like, I gotta eat that.
You're like,
They spilled the tea all over me.
This thing in my basement.
Everybody likes the doggies. You're going to have to quit bumping everything, though, buddy. He bumped my camera stand as he went by. Sean says, thank you. You're welcome, man. It looks great. Okay, look forward to having you join us down there in the Chicken Colt in Fentress County that Moose was talking about. If you didn't see that, go back and watch episode 56 where we spoke with Moose about movies, music, mayhem, and mysteries. We got some interesting stories from Moose in that one. And if you didn't check that out, go back and listen to it. Learn all about Uncle Don and Adon and their
the stuff.
Yeah, and their stock. He's in Dustin's lap there. Here's B in the doorway with the dog treat, so she'll probably get him to come upstairs. There, go get your treat.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's like, oh, man. Kate done carryouts. Sean gives us a yay. There goes Stock. He's going upstairs. Say goodbye. It's an odd combination, pug and cattle dog, but
Now we're the only laughing stalks down here.
Yeah. We really need a button for Dustin's one-liners. When Dustin hits us with one of his dry puns, we really need the dum-dum shh.
Make up your little tune.
Shoot, I always forget the last part of the meow mix jingle.
On the jingle of all things to choke on, too. I know it matters to you.
It does.
Hey, tonight's beverage is from Tailgate Brewery in Nashville. This is a peanut butter milk stout. It's kind of strange. It's not quite as creamy as I would like it to be, but it's not bad. If you like weird beers, and I kind of do.
And if y'all can't really see, here is the masterpiece of our...
Let me get you on the other camera there. There we go.
Our masterpiece of a musical station for the evening.
Our compositions will be written on there from now on.
Yes.
As I said, we got verbal agreement on an Iron Mountain Hour and Moose Trainwreck Roberts compilation. We don't have any, details or anything yet, but it's going to happen. It's going to be fun, and we'll share it with you whenever we get that done. But when you're recording with Moose, you just kind of gotta. One day he's going to call us and be like, "Can you be here this day?" And we're going to say like no, and he's like, "Well, what about this day?" And then we'll say yes, and then we'll all show up and play and leave, and it'll be a matter of about 45 minutes, and then Moose will turn it into a record. Well, maybe Tim will turn it into a record. I think Moose was wanting to go to your house.
Oh, well, we both got recording equipment either way. My end would... Usually what I do on my end is I set myself up to record about anything, but I don't consider myself a fantastic mixing and mastering sort of individual, and it's very affordable just to go to somebody who knows how to do that in this day and age. Because the tracking's the most expensive part.
Yeah.
So
Spill the tea is her drink of choice is Elaine Gear's Cran Raspberry, non-alcoholic. I like cran raspberry. I'm pretty big on cran anything really. Something like cran blueberry, cran pomegranate, cran grape, cran raspberry. I like all that stuff. And it all goes pretty good with a shot of vodka if that's what you're into. So, you guys have any interesting stories for us?
Well, I was walking through Target the other day, and I said, holy shit, look at that keyboard there. And here it was. And I said, there's no way in the world Goff can't not see this. So that's my interest.
So that's the whole reason to the purchase.
Oh yeah, I have a witness. I actually
You can play 3 keys at one time, so that's good.
I think it's just
2. Okay, you can get a diet out of it. That's enough to get good tonality out of it. All right. Well,
also known as a meower chord.
yeah, we'll see what comes to that. Well, last night, seems like everybody in the world was watching the sports ball game there between Tennessee and Alabama. It was all over the news. It was all over. Everybody here in East Tennessee was talking about it. It got pretty wild down there. The Tennessee and Alabama played. Tennessee won 52-49 with a last-second field goal, and it was a pretty tight game. And I'm not even really that. I don't really care about sports at all, other than I do have a lot of friends who like UT and want UT to win, and when UT wins, they're really happy. So I like for UT to win. Some of my friends are happy.
In customer service, it makes their job a whole lot easier around here when UT wins.
Oh yeah,
The
true.
work day goes by a lot quicker because all the employees keep up with UT, and they're like, "We're having a winning season."
Yeah.
And they're just slinging it. They don't care. They're doing a good job.
Go Vols! Go!
So literally for the last, I don't even know how long, decade now, I've had to put up with people in a bad mood. Twice a week.
Yeah,
because they
UT's not
lost,
been good in a while. A new band position, the toy, yeah. UT, they won a national championship in 1998, and everybody's expectation for them were pretty high after that, and then they just kind of slowly got worse and worse and worse and worse over the years. And it seems like they're finally getting a good season again, and they'd always have a bowl game or something, but they never were in contention for the national championship since then. So everybody around here is into it, but let's look at this real quick. They tore down the goalpost at Neyland Stadium. You had a sea of orange rush onto the field after they won.
Did you see the referees getting out of the way?
No, I didn't.
That's hilarious. There's like the referees call that goalpost, they walk out with their hands up, and then they immediately realize, oh no, and they take off running, doing like zigzags as they realize it's 300 coming at them.
Yeah, that's one of the loudest stadiums. I think it is the loudest stadium.
They broke a record.
Yeah, and let's look at them real quick.
Oh, there's videos of them walking them down the street.
Yeah. The fans rush on, they jump up and tear down the goalposts. What are those things made out of? They look like they're made out of like PVC or something.
The ones that used to be hanging out the football fields, like Unique and stuff, felt like they were made of like the metal that like.
Yeah, they're metal in high. Yeah, they're metal in high school.
But metal would sway like that though if it was that long.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked is they throw it in the river and it floats, which it could still be metal, I guess, if it displaces enough water. Well, because they were excited and
symbolic of something.
I don't know, but it's kind of strange, isn't it? That
it's like, oh, we win, we're gonna riot. We lose, we're gonna riot.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, I mean, this is like different though. Like when you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. It's like culturally accepted to
that's
tear
why
down the. And
people get so mad at like soccer games when people flip cars and stuff. It's like. Yeah, but when you go ask those people, I've directly asked European after European after European online, hey, dude, what's with all the fighting? It seems pretty violent over there. Oh, no, mate, it's all in good sport. It's always over soccer.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, seems like you guys are all going to have CTE at some point if you're all getting in fist fights every week.
They take it seriously, and people take their football games
And
seriously.
that's not a joke.
Let's watch this real quick.
Always people fighting on the street. It's crazy.
Look, they're carrying it down. They've broken in half, carrying it down the street.
And now the poor people that actually have to pay to go to school, they have to pay to put a new field goal post up.
I don't think they care.
Not only that, they actually got fined $50,000 by the Southeastern Conference for the fans rushing onto the field like that. But I think Tennessee would probably be glad to pay that.
I mean, how could you help that though?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's certain things you can help, but
And they're turning to fans to raise money for the new goalposts at Neyland Stadium.
Really?
Yeah.
they'll do it.
WAT reports that Knoxville, the fans are spent Saturday night celebrating the University of Tennessee's first football victory over the University of Alabama since 2006, but it ended up being costly for Neyland Stadium. Oh, I'm sorry. They'll be fined $100,000 for fans flooding the field after the game, and they tore down the goalposts. And let's see how much they're going to have to raise to get that back. They've already raised. Sunday at 4:19, they had already raised 32% or $32,000, which is 21% of its goal. So 32,000 times 5, so what? About 170,000 that they're gonna. Is that really how much it costs for a set of goalposts? $170,000? That seems insane.
And the rest of the reason why school costs so much.
Here's a. Let's watch this video of him taking it down real quick. If I can catch it.
What's up with the cigar smoking too?
I don't know. I guess that's a
lot of cigar smoking.
Yeah, a lot of the people who were celebrating the win were lighting up cigars. I saw that on Twitter and stuff. People were celebrating it. Oh, it's bad. This is terrible.
I don't remember who posted it, but somebody posted, there was a church that made a meme, actually. It showed like a girl looking in like utter disgust, like that is like when you have to go through with your bets that you made at the end of the game. It's like, you can always come to church in the morning, get forgiven for it. It was something along that line, and I was like, that's
Tennessee.
That's actually pretty good.
All right, let's go back right here. Here they go down the street with it. Throwing it in the river. They are heading out the goal. Out the door.
The river's the only thing that I don't like. Like, just park it somewhere. If you want to parade it around or whatever, leave it on the side of the road and be done with it. Don't throw it in the river.
Everybody thought they were taking it to the bar, but I guess they probably took it down to Calhoun's and threw it in the river. But those Tennessee guys know how to party, I guess, and
I'm gonna blame Antifa.
There you go.
It was them damn Proud Boys.
Yeah, one or the other.
FBI plants.
Let's look into FBI plants. Well, let's look at a TWRA plant in Camden, Tennessee. Man, if you found, now this is from Chris O'Brien from WKRN in Camden, Tennessee. He says, if you find cameras on your property, odds are you'd be a little surprised. Hunter Hollingsworth said that he was pointing at a tree on his property and he found a camera with pictures of him and pictures of TWRA workers or employees on it. And so they came on his property, and so he's got trail cams and stuff. But he found a camera that was put there by somebody other than him, and he was out looking for raccoons and stuff, and he shined his light on something, and he saw something shiny, and it was a camera with an antenna, and there were pictures of him and TWRA agents. So he put it in his gun safe, and then the law enforcement came to his property knocking with a search warrant saying he stole the camera. He said they had a bulletproof vest, first aid kits, extra magazines, like they were a SWAT team to come to my house to get this camera because I stole, he says, it was on my property illegally. They searched my whole house. And he said they even handcuffed him, but he didn't go to jail or receive a citation that day. And U.S. Fish and Wildlife later charged him they were on the camera too, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. They charged him with several violations, including illegal baiting and theft of government property. And he took a plea deal to drop most of the charges, which resulted in the suspension of his license for 3 years. What license? His hunting license?
Fishing license if he's illegal baiting.
Well, I mean, if he was baiting deer or something like that, I guess hunting and fishing are the same license. But my thing is, if they put that on his property without a warrant, how's that not a violation of the Fourth Amendment for them to go and put a camera on his property?
I think the government gives a shit about that anymore.
Well, yeah, you're right, but you'd think that this is the crazy thing about it is they expect us to follow the rules, but then they don't follow their own rules. Like, it's explicitly spelled out that you can't spy on somebody or go on their property and do things like that without a warrant, and they just do it, and then they charge him with it for removing it. And here what he says is basically he filed a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality, but the federal court threw the lawsuit out. And it's like the government has all this money at their disposal. They have an unlimited amount of funds at their disposal to come after you. But you, if you want to sue them, you've got to pay for a lawyer, and you've got to come up with the funds to keep the thing going. And he ran out of money to do that and wasn't able to continue the lawsuit after they threw it out the first time. But, he should have been able to fight that charge. But unfortunately, that's too expensive too. So he basically had to plead. And unless you've got money in this country and can get a really good lawyer, then you're pretty much going to be screwed. Spill the tea all over me. He says, if he was dating the deer, we would be concerned. Yeah, that would be a whole other story then. But yet another in a long line of offenses and grievances. But
what should have happened was he should have been like, hey, if he was spotting for raccoons and he saw the shine, he should have said, hey, I thought it was a raccoon, shot the thing.
Yeah,
they
probably would get him for that too.
His first
raccoons can be varmints, so varmint hunting, they don't.
He may have thought it was somebody else's hunting camera though, like maybe poachers on his land at first.
Well, this is it's going to be an ongoing thing, so we'll try to keep an eye on this one. But apparently, the Institute for Justice, which is a non-profit law firm, stepped in and come to find out, Hollingsworth found out he's not the only one the TWRA was watching. So they were doing a lot of this stuff, and we're going to keep an eye on this story from WREG as time goes on. We'll see what happens there, but that's just the first one, and we'll see what happens if they're able to make any ground with any other lawsuits there or anything like that. And let's move on. We were talking a little bit about Alex Jones last week. We got into his free speech systems company being charged essentially $1 billion as a result of his misreporting on the Sandy Hook hoax story, saying that he didn't know if it happened, and some things look suspicious about it, and apparently some people were harassed as a result of that, or that's what they said anyway. I kind of pointed out that Alex Jones did mention that story, but before Alex Jones mentioned it, it was already. Do you remember, Tim? It was all over the internet. People were saying it was fake, and I didn't see that from Alex Jones until after I had seen it from a lot of other places. And then for I guess Jones being the face of the conspiracy movement, was banned from Twitter, was banned from YouTube. Basically all your mainstream social media platforms he was banned from, and the family sued him, and the judge convicted him without a trial, without a defense, and the jury was left to decide the amount of damages that would be paid. And they decided that $965 billion would be the appropriate amount. And of course, Alex Jones doesn't have $1 billion, and his company's in bankruptcy, so he probably won't ever be paying any of that. If he does, it'll be a little bit at a time, and probably the lawyers will get most of it, because they can only pay if the company remains profitable, and that's why they basically have the protection of bankruptcy. So if the company is just barely above water, then that's really all they'll have to pay. He doesn't seem too concerned about having to pay it. But we were talking about that last week, so I wanted to do, lots of people were saying it too, said Spill the Tea. We talked about last week the Alex Jones story, and this is a thread from the Pine Baron at Spirit of Pines on Twitter. He says, now that we know Alex Jones is a menace, here are some other dangerous Alex Jones stories to look into. 1. A secret island where billionaires and former presidents and underage sex trafficking victims congregate. Good thing this turned out to be false. That would have such disturbing implications for our system. Obviously, he's talking about Jeffrey Epstein, who was arrested and convicted, I think, of 13 months on federal probation for sex trafficking in 2009 when he actually did do some time for it. Of course, he was on work release the whole time and was able to leave and go to his office and travel around, and pretty much had a pretty basic, what was it, a year of in-home jail, or that's what it was, wasn't it? 13 months of, what's it called when you're in prison at home? You can't leave your house. House arrest. Yeah. He was on 13 months of house arrest, but he was allowed to leave the house to go to work for like 12 hours a day. And he got all kinds of little special privileges. He should have gone to prison for a long time. He got charged with some stuff other than child prostitution, which was what he really did, but he basically got the charges dropped down. And it was it went to federal, but in Florida was where the case started. And the Secretary of, or the Attorney General, I think it was at the time, who ended up being Trump's Secretary of Labor, Alex Acosta, actually said he was told that Epstein was owned by intelligence and to leave him alone, and that was why that he didn't go after him further than he did. So yeah, you all know what happened to Epstein and how he ended up, or do we know how he ended up? I mean, I think we have a pretty good idea, but according to the official story, he hung himself with basically paper bed sheets, and ended up with a broken neck from paper bed sheets. Later, they had an autopsy done, and the mortician said that was not consistent with hanging injuries, that those kinds of breaks that Epstein had in his neck were consistent with a strangling injury. Let's go on to another one. Chemical contaminants in nature are having bizarre effects on the gender and sexuality of frogs. And, well, we've all seen the gay frogs, thing, but there really was a chemical called atrazine that was being added. It was being found in water, and it was causing frogs to basically be able to change their sexuality, kind of like in Jurassic Park, how they talked about the frogs that's why the dinosaurs started mating, because they were able to change their gender because they had frog DNA. That's based on a real scientific phenomenon where certain animals in the right situations can change their sex to prevent their species from going extinct. But atrazine apparently was found to have caused that artificially. Here's a classic. When everyone from the New York Times to Hillary Clinton was backing George Bush's war in Iraq, Alex was a fierce critic. He talked about elites using young blood for medical experimentation. Well, that's just crazy. He's been reading vampire novels. No shadowy tech billionaires would ever do something like this. And then we've got a couple other things, like governments have vast weather control programs. Geoengineering, cloud seeding has been around since the 1960s publicly, probably before that. And the biggest weather control programs that are public are actually the ski resorts out in Colorado, and they use the snow machines to. It's a lot of water that should be going back out to California, ends up falling on the mountains there in Colorado and in the western mountains there, so they can have skiing. And it makes sense that a ski resort would do that, cloud seed, to make sure they have snow all the time. But it's public. You can look that up. And then number 6, video footage of a secret gathering with ancient rituals in California, in the California forest between billionaires and politicians. This one might be on video, but we all know video can be edited. And we saw the cremation of care ceremony being done at the Bohemian Grove there in California, with lots of rich Republicans and Democrats participating in that. And Spill the Tea says that would be true. What are they squawking about? Oh yeah, I know. The island. Yep, Epstein's Island, and sure, paper sheets would do that. Yeah, you can break your neck with some paper sheets, I'm sure. He was on suicide watch actually, and it seems like his lawyer said no, he's not suicidal, but the jail put him on suicide watch anyway, which is another interesting thing in that saga. And let's see here. Scientists are fusioning human body parts with living animals. This would raise profound bioethical questions at consciousness and where human life ends and begins. Good thing he is a crank. And now there's pretty much they have pig hearts being put into people, and a lot of the reason that works is they started doing a human and pig hybrid DNA, so that your body, you could have your own DNA in the pig's hearts when it grows. That way your body doesn't reject it. And then Dick Cheney's basically Darth Vader. He's got he doesn't have a heart. I mean, he's got a heart, but he has an external pump on his body that pulls the blood out through the pump and then pumps it back into his body, basically, so his heart doesn't have to do the work. So there's all kinds of crazy tech out there and actually Alex Jones is the first place I heard that, and it's true. But that brings me over to, we've talked about this before, the conspiracy chart. It was compiled by a journalist who was looking into a lot of these conspiracy stuff. And right at the top of it here, let's back out a little bit. We've got, from the beginning, we've got things that actually happened up to detached from reality. And under the things that actually happened, they've got Big Tobacco lied about cancer, NSA mass surveillance, Tuskegee, FBI spied on John Lennon, MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird. We've talked about a lot of those on the channel. And up here in leaving the speculation line, they've got UFOs, Roswell, Epstein didn't kill himself, Princess Diana, JFK assassination. And then we get to leaving reality, and then we get into cryptids, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, Avril Lavigne replaced, the Beatles never existed. And then we've got science denial, anti-vaxxers, global warming hoax, jet fuel doesn't melt, steel beam, chemtrails, which chemtrails are absolutely a real thing. They're part of it, it's called stratospheric aerosol injection, if you want to look it up using the scientific term, or atmospheric aerosol injection. It's a real thing that happens. You can look it up and find out what it is if you're into that. But the main reason I was wanting to show you all this is right here at the top, under detached from reality. Now, according to kind of your mainstream news, we've got detached from reality right here. I want to show you just three things real quick. We've got celebs moisturize with children's foreskin. Now that would have to be made up, right? That couldn't be something that's true. Let's watch a little bit of the Ellen DeGeneres show here with Sandra Bullock. This is commentary, by the way.
Well, I call it the penis facial.
What do you call it? What do you call it, Sandra?
So we call it, I call it the penis facial.
Okay. What is the penis facial? Let's go.
We're on the wrong website to be looking at those, aren't we?
Far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract its foreskin from a Korean baby.
This is commentary. And yeah, they microneedle the serum into the pores of the face and basically use the stem cells from that foreskin in order to try to make themselves look younger. So there's one on detached from reality where we see there is a daytime talk show where a celebrity is openly telling the whole world that she uses that. Yet whoever made this chart, I forget who it was. We talked about it on the other one. Thinks that the world that you should get help right here if you believe that celebs moisturize with children's foreskin. That's one of the most detached from reality things that they can think of. How is that in that section? I don't get it. Now, another thing that they show in here. Let's look right in the middle of the top. A New World Order. Everybody remembers that. You all have heard that. It's on a Ministry song. A New World Order. A New World Order. George W. Bush famously said it. Let's look at him real quick. This is back at a joint session of Congress in 1991 when George was telling us his idea for the New World Order. This is public domain.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future.
So there's George W. Bush talking about the New World Order, and he went on to talk about it several other times, including, pretty sure it was September 11th, 1991. He did another big speech talking about it. We've also got our current president, what would you call him?
President.
Current invalid in chief, maybe? Let's look at our current president talking about the New World Order.
Now's the time things are shifting.
So basically, the New World Order is uniting. You know, it's been the same thing the whole time. Uniting the world, and from their perspective, basically under Western rule. But that's another thing in the conspiracy chart where we can look that up and see that it is not a detached from reality idea. It didn't just come out of nowhere. People listened to what these people said and read their writings. Let's look at one more in that before we go into the theme of the episodes. Let's look at... Whoops, it's too big there. One more. The deep state. The idea of a deep state. Donald Trump was mocked relentlessly for the idea that there was a deep state, saying, you know, he says there's this big conspiracy and they're after him. Well, let's look up the Senior Executive Services. This is from Office of Policy Management for the United States Federal Government. It's opm.org or .gov. Policy data oversight for the Senior Executive Services. The Senior Executive Service lead America's workforce. As the keystone of the Civil Reform Act of 1978, the Senior Executive Service was established to ensure that the executive management of the government of the United States is responsive to the needs, policies, and goals of the nation and otherwise is of the highest quality. These leaders possess well-honed executive skills and share a broad perspective on government and a public service commitment that is grounded in the Constitution. That's pretty funny right there. Members of the Senior Executive Services, here's the important part, serve in key positions just below the top presidential appointees. Senior Executive Services members are the major link between these appointees and the rest of the federal workforce. They operate and oversee nearly every government activity in approximately 75 federal agencies. Now, do you guys get what that means? These are the people who stay in their jobs. They report directly to the people who the president appoints. If it's the Secretary of Defense, you know, the Defense Department has, or no, I think it's the civilian. So let's say the Secretary of Transportation or Energy, whatever it is. The president appoints the head of those agencies, but these guys work underneath that guy. So when the president appoints that head, these are the people who go to the head of the agency and say, hey, sir, this is what we have, or hey, ma'am, this is what we have on the agenda today. This is what we've been working on. We're going to get you up to speed and get you rolling. So they get all their information. You know, our presidentially appointed people get all their information from the Senior Executive Services. So even though they're calling the shots, at least in theory, these guys, they're there for a maximum of 4 to 8 years usually. Meanwhile, these guys have been working there since 1978, and they are informing the president's representatives and the president of what the policy is going to be. So that's just 3 things real quick that we can look at from the conspiracy chart that says they are detached from reality. And we've just shown you 3 things there that are easily verifiable. Now, it's something like, can't hear that, huh? That's weird.
You could hear all of them but Sandra for some reason.
Huh, wonder why you couldn't hear Sandra. Let's look at her real quick. I didn't mute the desktop audio, but it's muted. Well, let me look up Sandra Bullock real quick so you can hear that.
I see what you did there.
Expedia members can save up to 30% by adding...
I bet you can hear that.
Tapping the D.
Meow, meow. I like to tap that A.
Press F for respect.
G for gas the D.
All right, let's listen to Sandra real quick. Hopefully y'all can hear her this time. Oh, I need to actually leave that partial screen there. All right, let's listen to Sandra.
So we call it, I call it the penis facial.
She calls it the penis facial, and then we'll go skip ahead here where she explains what that is.
A young person, far, far away, and they...
Well, a little bit early. Let's try it here.
A young person that came from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away.
This is commentary. Now Ellen's going to tell us what that actually means.
And they somehow figured out how to extract...
It's foreskin from a Korean baby.
And that's exactly what it is. And Sandra Bullock was dancing around the bush, but she goes on to explain how they microneedle the shit into her face so that the stem cells that are contained in the baby's foreskin actually rejuvenate the skin of their face. So see if we can hear that there.
Are they literally dickheads?
She's a dick face, yes. Yes, she's a dick face. Hey, speaking of which, it's time for a shout out to our sponsor. You know, you may have noticed that it's been a few weeks since we heard from our sponsor, Tammy's Artisanal Toys. Well, Tammy had a little
been beating around the bush, we'll tell you that.
That's right. She had a little bit of a beef with us, and I would like to explain that to you tonight. So, we talked about Tammy's Artisanal Toys before. Go out and check those out. She's been a sponsor of the show for a long time. But recently, now we've mentioned on the show, how many times have we mentioned, do not go to tammysdildos.com because of the lawsuit that's no longer owned by Tammy. She no longer has that domain name. But here's the thing. Tammy, every time that you guys have been going to her store and ordering using the promo code IMH for Iron Mountain Hour, that's supposed to save you 10% or free shipping. That's what it is. Free shipping at Tammy's Artisanal Toys with promo code IMH at checkout. But here's the thing. Y'all have still been going to Tammy's Dildos. And every time that you go to Tammy's Dildos, she still owns, or she still gets receipts from that domain name, basically. So even though she doesn't own the domain name, she gets notifications from it. And she can see every time you buy from tammysdildos.com, that's actually hurting her. That's money that's going to her competition who beat her in the lawsuit. So we really need you to be sure you go to Tammy's Artisanal Toys, not Tammy's Dildos. And we want to thank you, Tammy, for sponsoring us again. Thank you for sticking with us. I'm sorry our audience has been hurting you by supplementing your competition so much, but thank you for sticking with us. Everybody go check out her Halloween theme. Now she actually got this one was inspired by Dustin, and it is Tentacle Tom, just in time for Halloween. So if you like the weird stuff, go check that out. All right, now let's get in. Okay, we got some chats here. Spill the Tea says, I'm not interested in their reality. I know what you mean. Sean says, the current resident. Yes, current resident. Like a resident of an old folks home. Mm-hmm. Spill the Tea says, companies have presidents and this corporation is going down. Yeah, it's hard to see an upside, really. It really is. Not sure what'll be next. Don't really care. I have to go, guys. I'll finish up the show tomorrow. Well, thanks for joining us, Sean. And yeah, just hit us in the comments or hit us in the email. Let us know how you like it and what you think about it. Spill the Tea all over me says, yes, foreskin and it's expensive. I think that's pretty widely known. I don't think that's a secret, is it? I saw that back however long ago that was. I was actually watching the Ellen show when that happened, and I used to work at a job where they used to like to watch Ellen, and I saw that live on TV, so it's definitely not something that's secret. Well, tonight, October 16th, is the anniversary of the day that they chopped off Marie Antoinette. And in honor of that day, and in honor of Tammy, we've got this here from Crayon. I asked the AI to draw Marie Antoinette with a sex toy, and this is what it came up with.
That's what's called a tornado. Like a 7-Eleven.
That might be one of those wooden ones we were talking about. A tornado. That's what it looks like.
Yeah,
Isn't it? One of those things where they sit them on the rollers.
Or a cheeseburger bite.
Yeah. Oh man, I bet those are delicious, but I never have been able to work up the nerve to try one of those cheeseburger roll-ups.
I ended up eating
in the gas station
quite a bit. We were, I forget where we were. It was either Nashville, Detroit, someplace like that, where there's literally just there's like a market that was like a 7-Eleven, but they converted it into pretty much like an all-in-one place. And after a few days of eating those tornadoes or cheeseburger bites, it's like it just kind of comes out looking exactly the same as you ate it. Because it's already a cylinder anyway.
It just comes out without the intestine on it, encased. Well, Marie Antoinette died on the 16th of October. She was the last queen of France before the French Revolution.
Spill the Tea. If you find a website, please link it in the chat. I would be really interested to see what you find.
Marie Antoinette, she was
VPN.
She was an Archduchess of Austria, and
incognito mode.
When she was 14, she married Louis XVI, who would later become the King of France. He was the last king of France. I think it was called the Sun King, and he had like these big lavish palaces and was really famous for that. But after she became really unpopular with the French people because they were saying that she had illegitimate children and that she was hiding them because she hadn't had any children with the king yet. And she was also from Austria, and they were having a dispute with Austria. The French were over land that was part of France that Austria said was part of Austria. And they said, well, since she's from Austria, she's harboring secrets and harboring sympathies for the Austrians. And it ended up leading, over a long period of time to the French Revolution. And the Georgians, or the, what are they called? The, how do you say that word? Gridions or something like that. This is the party that ended up taking over. They were led by Robespierre, and they overthrew the royalty and chopped off Louis XIII's head, and also ended up chopping Marie Antoinette's head off. And she was famous for saying, "Let them eat cake." Everybody knows that story, "Let them eat cake," because apparently when the French peasants were banging at the gates saying they didn't have food, she says, "Qu'ils mangent de la brioche," which means "let them eat brioche," which is a rich bread, kind of like cake.
She's got better sayings, but that one just drowned all the better ones out.
Yeah, and it's actually a older quote than that. So a lot of people say that she probably didn't even say it. Historians now think she didn't actually say it. It was this article here from Britannica.com says that they found this going back to 1767 in a book by French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In his Confessions, he relates a version of the story attributing the quote to a great princess. Although Marie Antoinette was a princess at the time, she was still a child, so it's unlikely that that's who he got it from. But Rousseau's writings inspired the revolutionaries, and they sometimes reckon that he picked up on this quote and then falsely accredited it to Marie Antoinette and spread it as propaganda, basically to say this is how much they think of us, and to inspire people to revolt and take over the monarchy.
Well, her best one, which is in her diary, which was when I was coming to get her, which was "J'adore, donnez-moi tête sacrée," which stands for "Don't shame a lady with pepperoni nipples." But somehow all those revolting people just shadowed her humanitarian efforts.
Well, and that'll be one of Tammy's next toys, is the Marie Antoinette pepperoni nipple blow-up doll. So be sure and go to Tammy's Artisanal Toys for that.
Scratch and sniff action.
Yeah, now this one is not... now Tammy, I really think she'll eventually get into the sex bot game, but you guys got to really rock that promo code IMH to get her up to that level.
And for the love of God, if somebody actually does go buy sex toys or pornography, it's not our fault. I'm sorry. But she did really stand up for the pepperoni nipple folk out there, and I do think she needs more recognition for that.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Well, also today in history, we had in 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And here's our... I was hoping the AI would give us something good for this, but this is what it gave us for Cuban missile sandwich. But it just looks like basically a Cuban sandwich, or an AI's idea of the Cuban sandwich. I think actually some of these are pretty close. That looks like a Cuban sandwich.
Pretty close, yeah.
That kind of does too. Sometimes the AI is better than other, but they actually have one now that you can download the module on your computer and run it on your computer, and that's where these people are making these really good ones where the AI art is just insanely good, and you can give it really specific things to do. And reason I think it's pretty obvious the reason I got into Cuban Missile Crisis. Not only it's the anniversary of it, but we're kind of in a similar standoff. We're not to the point yet of where world leaders actually are threatening one another with nukes, but they're coming pretty close to it. Vladimir Putin has been famously saying that if there's any encroachment from over his border from the NATO-backed Ukrainian forces, that he'll use nuclear weapons. And we've seen Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, saying that he was calling for a preemptive nuclear strike against Russia, or a preemptive strike. I don't know that he specified nuclear, but he was calling for a preemptive strike against Russia. And after Russia had said, if y'all strike us in Russia, then we're going to be using nukes or whatever. So the Cuban Missile Crisis back in 1962, it happened between Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet premier, and John F. Kennedy, who was the president of the United States at the time. There were nuclear missiles that the United States had. Now this is all in the backdrop of the Cold War. World War II ended, and we had like the Korean War, and the influence of the Soviet Russia was spreading around the world. They were basically giving money and taking people under their wings to be a part of their global empire, and giving them their weapons tech and stuff. And basically, they came out of World War II better than almost anybody except for the United States. They lost a lot of people in World War II, but they came as the other leading superpower, and they started absorbing, communist nations and stuff like this. And Cuba was one that they made some deals with. And at this time, Russia did not like that there were missiles in Italy and Turkey, and they put, let's see, I think, was it? Yes, it was the Jupiter ballistic missiles in Italy and Turkey. Yeah, and then they had the Bay of Pigs in 1961, where the U.S. CIA convinced the Cuban rebels to rebel against Castro, who had allied with Nikita Khrushchev, and they said that they would give them air support, so basically these Cuban rebels could take over, and they'd have the U.S. support and be able to actually achieve their goal. Well, they went ahead with the plan, but they didn't get Kennedy to sign off on it till the last minute, and then he finds out about it, says, no, we're not doing that. That'll, put us to war, and we're not going to do that. Kind of similar to what they did in 1895 with the Spanish-American War, where the sugar magnates used the newspapers that they owned in order to spread the false story that the Spanish had attacked a ship in Cuba, because basically if they were kicked out of Cuba, they were going to lose their, sugar kingpin status, and they didn't want to have that. So they were willing to get the United States into war with Cuba, or with Spain in Cuba, so they didn't lose their status. Well, kind of similarly here, the intelligence agencies had their eyes on Cuba, military intelligence had their eyes on Cuba, and it was part of their overall strategy. And they went ahead and went for it, and Kennedy didn't back them. He also had Operation Northwoods as part of this. This was actually 1962, and this is Kennedy again shutting down the CIA. They called for violent terrorism against the American military and civilian targets, and they were going to blame them on Cuba to justify war. And what they were going to do was they were going to take a remote control of a civilian aircraft, and it would secretly be a repainted U.S. Air Force plane, and they were going to blow it up and make it look like the Cubans had blown up a civilian airplane, or an Air Force plane, and fake it so that Americans would support going to war with Cuba. But Kennedy again put the kibosh on that. So those folks weren't happy with Kennedy. A lot of those folks in the intelligence agencies were not happy with him. And let's look here at the Bay of Pigs Invasion Barbecue Restaurant by the Dolly AI. I mean, they did a pretty good job on the barbecue restaurant, but I don't think it understands parody very well, do you?
No.
Although it did give us the gem that was Stephen King of the Hill. Why couldn't it figure that out? And Ham Solo, but it can't figure out Bay of Pigs barbecue.
Words,
yeah, maybe so. And if you had one of the good AIs, you probably would.
BBQ Bay of Pigs.
Let's try that. Let's look at BBQ Bay of Pigs. Anything you want us to put in their chat? You got any good ideas to throw in the Dolly AI art generator? Just let us know in the chat. We'll throw it in there for you. Spill the Tea says, get us in a mess. Yes, and that seems like what's happening right now. and the news has been Elon Musk recently because he was on Twitter he was proposing that there be peace between the two countries, Ukraine and Russia, and he made several propositions for that. And the Ukrainian, I think one of their heads of state, I can't remember I don't think it was head of communications, head of defense, one of these guys, told him to go fuck himself. And so Elon said, well, okay, I guess I will. I'll go fuck off, and I'm not going to fund the Starlink communication system, which is what the internet satellite communication system that Ukraine has been using to coordinate their attacks and their drones. They've been using Elon's Starlink internet system that he funded to the tune of $80 million. And he said, well, he's going to back off of that. And they said, basically, he ended up not backing off of it, but he's trying his best to at least he appears to be trying his best to find some sort of peace between the two countries. But it doesn't seem like that's what people really want. It seems like a lot of people really want this to escalate, and some of those include China. I would think. Wouldn't you think that would benefit China if the shit escalated? As far as world powers, well, China is now telling their citizens to evacuate Ukraine amid nuclear fears, and a lot of people have the suspicion that if the United States gets involved fully, from it being a proxy war that they're mostly funding and coordinating, that if they actually go into Ukraine, that we could end up with China taking Taiwan, and which basically Taiwan's in Chinese territories, and I think officially the U.S. policy is that China's part of Taiwan.
I don't think it was until Biden got in.
Oh, is that right?
No.
I know he said that, but
it's actually a very controversial statement.
I think
Taiwan's been sending ambassadors out to events begging the world to stop thinking that Taiwan's a part of China.
Yeah. Well, Biden mentioned that they had a one China policy, which I understood to mean that Taiwan is part of China.
No, that's one China is what he means by that is Hong Kong, because I think it's like in '96 it was like a British. I get my years mixed up until it's been pretty recent when Hong Kong was returned to China, and that's what all those riots pre-COVID were actually about. Is a lot of those people in Hong Kong did not want to go completely to Chinese rule. They wanted to stay the way it was, where they were kind of like almost like a British colony.
It was like
they had different rules.
I forget what it was called, but yeah, it was a British Commonwealth or something like that. But yeah, we've seen a real escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia had a couple of days of they really weren't using any like real targeted Hellfire type missiles and stuff like that, or their versions of it. I'm not sure what they're called, but they really weren't using a lot of those long range missile strikes and stuff like that, and they really weren't taking out a lot of the power infrastructure until they just had the pipelines blown up there, and then the Nord Stream pipelines, and then was really getting pushed back towards the border of Ukraine and Russia, and that was when they leashed out with these. The first day it was 84 missiles, and then they did a second day. Elon Musketeer. All right, that's a good one. Let's see if we can get that. And Bay of Pigs barbecue, and really disappointing.
Mm-hmm. Bay of Pigs barbecue and foot wash.
But let's try Elon Musketeer. I like that better.
I think I do.
Since it was suggested in the chat.
Yeah.
Massage.
Talk about.
It's funny how with like I remember reading something a while back. I don't know if it's still valid or not, but it was something saying like, we need to really try to avoid anything that could, involve a nuke dropping, starting nuclear war, because they've always said, oh, nuclear winter. That's pretty much true. It's like if another massive nuke drops with how our atmosphere is recently, it could artificially instate another ice age.
Yeah. Yep. And really, I was looking at a map from FEMA this weekend that was released recently, and they're doing drills in like New York City. They're doing nuclear drills and stuff like that. This map from FEMA was showing like potential nuclear attack sites and things like this, and they were showing like there weren't any real close to us. It looked like Oak Ridge was the closest one to us, but we weren't really in a danger from the initial blast from any of them. But we were in a high fallout zone where we live, compared to most of the rest of the country. Here's Elon Musketeer. That's pretty good. Doesn't really look like Elon though. It just kind of looks like a musketeer. Let's see what we got here. It kind of looks like Trump musketeer.
Yeah, it looks more Trumpish than Musk to me.
None of these really look like Elon. That looks kind of like Chunk.
That looks more like Barbosa from Pirates of the Caribbean. There be real monsters here, laddie.
And kind of looks like George Washington.
That one looks more like a Cenobite.
We keep coming back to those Cenobites with the...
Anytime I think of a hell character, like a demon, that's what I think of as a Cenobite. Dun, dun.
And now we've got...
Moldova, that was next to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at any of Bald and Bankrupt's videos on YouTube?
No, I haven't.
Very, very, very good channel if you want to see like actual real stuff that's going on. He got kicked out of Russia because he just... Is it Russia or Ukraine? It was in the war zone right at the middle of it. He just walked on in. Right now, well, his latest video was Afghanistan. He's just an English dude that just walks in and is really friendly to everybody and goes to some really pretty wild places. But Moldova is a really, really sad place. Is what made me think of that, because he goes to a lot of these former Soviet countries, and it reveals how big the Soviet Empire used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Because everything's just empty. It's just these big, empty, massive... the only way you could really describe them is Soviet, because they have a very distinct look to them, and they're all completely empty or filled with vagrants.
They're very utilitarian designed buildings. There's very little, except for, the capital. In Moscow and St. Petersburg, you'll have, nice, beautiful architecture for the party leaders, but people...
Even in Moldova, like, even their capital's falling apart.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Because apparently their politicians looted everything on the way out. As the Soviet Empire collapsed, they kind of just took everything and ran and left the country empty.
That's kind of what a lot of them did, and they saw where the wind was blowing, and a lot of them went back to, the Soviet sympathizers went back to Russia, and they wanted to try to get a job.
Actually, by watching his channel.
Okay, let's hear it.
The idea that every single one of the all across the board, all your Soviet countries that he's gone to, even the ones that'll kind of do it under the hush-hush, like I don't really want to be saying on this on camera, all of them will say that life was better when it was Soviet, before everybody went independent.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how many people would think the United States would be better if the Fed went away. I don't know. I don't have an argument that it would or wouldn't.
Right.
But watching that,
Oh, you mean the federal government, not the Federal Reserve? Okay.
The federal government,
Okay.
yes, because that's what holds the states loosely together, and that was what the Soviet Empire was supposed to be doing to all these countries. But it may have been the way that it fell apart that made everything so bad. But if the states really did go independent, there's a lot of these places that really would be fucked.
It's hard to really say what would happen. A lot of people have been talking about that, and they're saying, the red states are a lot of times dependent from, if you're a farmer, you're dependent from orders, from Chicago, for meat packing. And
it really depends. The desert states would be effed.
Yeah, well,
Nevada is 80% federal land. You got 20% of the people that definitely depend on the government, and then most of it's just Vegas and Reno.
and the federal government is now the biggest employer in the United States. I think it has over 1 million employees. Let me double check that. I don't want to give disinformation, and even though I canceled my PayPal, I don't want them trying to steal $2,500 from me. What was it I was going to look up? Federal workforce size.
You were going to look up how much foreskin was going for on the internet right now.
No thanks.
Get rid of some of them crow's feet.
I would be afraid to even search for that. Just get it up on some
type
registry.
in penis facial. You can do this with,
Yeah.
you just do screen share and type in penis facial.
No thanks.
The channel won't get terminated instantly at all.
No thanks. Federal government workforce size. Let's see. Or federal government is largest employer. Let's look at that. As the nation's largest employer, this is according to the DOL, Department of Labor.gov, the federal government must model effective employment practices and practices that advance America's ideal of equal opportunity for all. All right. So, yeah, the federal government is the largest employer. And there's been a lot of talk of, the national divorce and saying, well, we should just divide everything up and peacefully settle this before it comes to something that we can't peacefully settle, basically. And we're seeing signs of civil strife. It's not to the point of civil war yet, but we are having political attacks, violent political attacks happening from both sides, both major parties on one another for a few years. And I think it's considered civil strife once you get up to 39 such instances in a year, and we have been in civil strife for the last few years. With basically having a powder keg right now, man, the whole world is in a bit of a powder keg. So we haven't really talked about this in a while, because what can you really do about Russia? What are you going to do about that? I mean, do you guys have any ideas? I don't really.
Lots of plans when I inevitably find that genie's lamp that I've been looking for so long. I'll essentially own everything. So
well, see, if you get that genie's lamp and you wish for world peace, it'll be like one of those things where no. I'm just giving you an example. If you were to wish for,
totally go mad.
If you were to wish for world peace, you would end up with an evil dictatorship. Basically, that's what
the evil would be absurd.
Well, yours would be, yes, but that's what they have in mind is a world peace, because they want you in cities like the Line that we showed you in Saudi Arabia, and they want you living in a big giant hive city and not really in any position to fight, because
they're okay with the hive city on some level. They want a coming empire.
Well, if you're in charge of it, I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
But that would be peaceful, right? If you were not
peaceful.
No, if you were not able to, but
I'm going to annoy the population just to keep things interesting, because I think that's the problem. I don't want a bored society, idle hands, baby. Go.
No, I'm more interested in your new world order, in a Tim world order, than I am the liberal elite world order.
We caught this man stealing. You owe us 24 hours of jaunty tunes. Entertain the children, you bastard.
I like where this is going.
No. I don't want criminals around children. He got caught stealing. He's entertaining like 7-Eleven employees while they do their job, because he stole a Snickers bar or something, obviously.
Now, Tim is currently starting a cult, so that might be the way to help Tim achieve his new world order, is to join his cult.
These are separate. I do have enough time in my life to run a private hippie cult. It's a private non-hippie. It's a private hippie non-profit sort of cult that I'm definitely founding. But the coming empire is also coming too. I'm able to multitask, folks. I can do both.
Well, I think you should use your cult as the religion to organize your coming empire.
I won't use religion to get my empire started.
Okay. Well, that might succeed.
I will use the Pied Piper method.
Ah, yes, indeed.
I will take with me a stick mandolin, and I will sing me a jaunty tune. I will shake my ass in such a way Lizzo taught me, and then I will go down the road.
Now, are you going to take the people's
Forrest Gump method?
Are you going to take the people's children away with you, like the Pied Piper?
I want adults and children.
Okay.
I want to take care of kids. Jeez, I want to.
That's what I was going to say. You're going to have your hands full.
Nah.
Spill the Tea says just put honey and yogurt on your face and it'll be nice and smooth. Yes, indeed.
I got a lot of beard there. That yogurt and honey might get caught up in that.
That'd be gross looking.
So I can do it right here for a while, but then I'd only have smooth spots, and I just think I was like wearing rouge or something.
Well, we hadn't talked about it in a while, but there's really not a lot that we can do to avoid nuclear war as far as organizing on the internet and let's stop this war. I mean,
I'm just taking that side.
Or we could say, hopefully, if it does happen, we're close enough to get burnt into the pavement and we won't really care.
Yeah. Or another thing is, like I said, in the event of a EMP or whatever, like something like that could potentially happen. I mean, I think that would be your main goal of a nuclear strike from a foreign power, would be to basically blast the ionosphere, get rid of our power grids, and eventually, if there's somebody
Pretty sure
intent on
for
world
the US power
domination,
grid, you wouldn't have to use an EMP.
yeah.
Not even.
Well, if you did, that would definitely take it down. But that's kind of the where I want to get around to is we're not saying be a doomsday prepper or anything like this, but it's good to go ahead and have things in mind to be able to do as much as you can to take care of yourself. Organize with your neighbors
Buy as much frozen food and milk as possible, especially the milk. Only 3 drops of Clorox bleach per bottle. I'm kidding. Of milk will keep that milk fresh for years.
No, but learn how to do things. Learn how to build a few things. Learn how to basically. If you're not able to have power, if you're not able to have water, make sure you have ways to have food and have shelter and have protection. Organize with your neighbors. Basically, parallel systems in the event that you ever need them. Because back in 100 years ago, there was 90% of the people lived off the land. About 10% of people lived in cities, and most people were self-sufficient. And it's kind of the reverse of that now. Even though 90% of us don't live in cities, only about 10% of us are self-sufficient now, although it is growing for people to become self-sufficient. But, if there's a nuclear war, there's nothing you can do about it.
Buy candles.
Buy
about probably 50 copies of Infinite Jest, not to read. You only need one of those, and you won't finish it. It's a really big book, so you can just, when you're out of bullets, you can hurl it at people.
Yeah, if you can't afford plates, you could wear it on your chest.
There's a lot of pages to that book, so you can roll joints with it. You can use it as toilet paper. You can roll it as poop toilet paper and have little poop ball fights with each other when things get real weird.
Yep. And Spill says have an emergency meeting spot. That's very important. And like I said, it's not anything that if the end of the world comes, there's only so much you can do. But there legitimately could be a situation where you don't have power or communication for some amount of time, and order is restored eventually. I mean, I feel like eventually order would be restored if something like that was to happen, but it could take months or years to get the power grid online. And if you had the power down for a year, there's a lot of people going to die, and that's going to cause a lot of chaos.
I mean, you don't think like when I always think when we get doomy like that, like F5 tornadoes hit and like towns bounce back from that. Like Nagasaki and Hiroshima both got hit with nukes, and they're bustling cities to this day. So like that's something that's like a human cockroach theory.
Well, I don't think that it means that we're done as a civilization, but I think that there's a lot of people, for example, in people who are kept alive with medical devices that require power. When they run out of power, when people aren't able to get medications that are keeping them alive, when people are in big cities who, they have 3 days worth of food in the city at a time, and suddenly there's no way for the trucks to pump diesel, and there's no way for the refrigeration to stay up, so there's no way for food to be brought in, and I think that could be a really bad situation. So again, Tim has been saying this whole time, if you live in a city, there's something wrong with you, and you should. I don't think you said you should try to get out of there. I'm saying that, but Tim basically said you should
definitely stay. Do not come here.
Yeah.
You'll ruin it.
Yeah,
I'm firm on that stance. It's like what is it? Institutionalization. Once you're in there, you just need to stay in there, because if you come out of that city, you'll end up old redneck. Red was here, and you'll Shawshank yourself off a wooden post because, don't leave the city. Stay in the city.
You heard it.
It sucks here.
That's right.
It's horrible outside the city.
And you definitely don't want to come here trying to take things.
I think you should stay in the city and keep voting to your heart's content. I was wrong. You should vote. I think only on the
cities.
I think only city dwellers should vote, and then only federal laws apply while you're in the city. And that's how that should work now.
All right. Thus saith Tim. And
Remember, I'm the
Tim world order
in my empire, so you guys might like some of the stuff I say, but it don't mean I'm right.
That's right. The Tim world order. Well, not trying to be gloom and doom or anything, because, realistically, we've been 2 minutes to midnight on the doomsday clock before. Iron Maiden even wrote a song about it. And they're saying we're closer than we've ever been since the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is one of the reasons I brought that up today, in addition to it being the anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis here on October 16th in 1962. It's exactly 60 years ago. So many things, though, are repeating. I guess, they say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And we're seeing a lot of examples of that in history recently, what with the revolutionary French, we'll call it. They've kind of been getting pretty revolutionary over the last few years, reminiscent of their original revolution. And then you've got a lot of people saying that there may be a coming second American revolution. And a lot of those people have their hopes set on the upcoming midterm election. They feel like that's going to be their way to express their revolutionary desires. Now, I am quite skeptical that voting Republicans back into office is going to do anything about a lot of the things that are they're going on in the country right now, particularly because this country runs on executive fiat. Ultimately, if the president says that the federal government's going to do it, then the federal government will do it until the court orders them not to, and sometimes they'll keep on even if the court does order them not to. So I don't think that Republicans having the control of the purse strings is really going to do a whole lot. Second, I have a theory that the Democrats actually want the Republicans to win the midterms so that they can blame everything on the Republicans and try to hold everything in 2024. Because I think stuff will get bad. I think inflation will continue to get worse. But gas prices will continue to get worse. Biden has done everything he can through executive action to try to keep those things low until the midterms, but it's not really worked. It has some effect, but I think after the midterms, basically the effects of those policies are going to hit us. We're going to have more inflation and higher gas prices, and a lot of the stuff that people, that's really causing people to say, hey, why the hell did I vote for this guy? I think you're going to see a lot more of that, but I don't have a lot of hopes that the Republicans are going to fix anything. What do you guys think?
Nope. It's like neither party fixes anything.
Yeah, I mean, I may be in line with as far as values with some of the populist Republicans that are coming into office, but I don't think there's enough of them. I think it's mostly still going to be establishment Republicans, and uniparty shills, if you will, and don't have a lot of hope for that. So that's why I say shore up your state government, shore up your local government, do what you can in those, shore up your communities, shore up your families, bring everything you can closer to yourself, get your food closer to home, do everything you can closer to home, from your food to your governance to your lifestyle. I think that's the best bet. Even if nothing happens, you're going to be better off, and that's about all I have to say about that. And so with that in mind, I'm about to call it quits for tonight. What do you guys think?
In case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
All right. Well, we will see you on Wednesday when Tim and I do our news and current events roundup. We'll hopefully have some good news to get into. Good night, Spill the Tea. She says good night, all. And we will see you on Sunday also, and we're going to be having Reverend Crash Fist Fight in here for our October 30th show. We're going to talk about spooky stories and War of the Worlds. I don't know what we're going to do next week just yet, but we'll let you know on Wednesday night. You guys have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Hit like if you haven't hit like yet. Like the video.